road. I'm pretty sure you can hear me okay. But yeah, I'm on the road. I left work early. I got off early today, and I'm off tomorrow. I'm on my way to Tennessee. I've never been before. I've driven through Tennessee a couple times for reasons. Long story. I moved to Minnesota and then moved back. But yeah, I've never actually visited, and I'm going to be going twice this year. But I'm on my way there now. I am going to, so about a year or so ago, a friend of mine was telling me, God, I guess at this point it's been 2-3 years. My God. Anyway, she was telling me about a show that she had gone to at this venue that's this cave system. And I was like, you saw a show in a cave? And she was like, I saw a show in a cave and it was amazing. And ever since then, I was just like, I gotta see a show in this cave. So I've just, I visit this venue. I do this with a lot of venues, and just checking to see like who's coming through, who's playing. And I saw that the Violent Femmes were doing a show at this venue. It's called The Caverns, and those tickets sold out so flippin' fast, and they just as fast got put up for sale on resale sites at ridiculous prices, of course. So I just kept my eye on these resale sites and just waited until prices started dropping, and I got a ticket. And then but the show's on a Wednesday, and I had to get time off for that, and then I thought that I wasn't going to be able to, and then it turned out that I was able to, and it was just this whole thing. But I'm going. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. My God. But yeah, and trying to get back to doing videos regularly, and I do one, and like, what was going on? Something was going on where, like yesterday, like all the conference rooms weren't available, so then I ended up doing it in the backyard, but there's something, I can't remember, it doesn't matter, we're here now. I'm trying so hard, to not dwell on the past, and not to like stress out about the future, and just be here, be now. I'm here we are now. We're going to Tennessee. I'm going to see the Violent Femmes tonight. I'm so excited. Yeah. What is happening? Okay, we're good. So, I figured this might be a good time to, instead of talking about books or comics, talk about, and like origin stories and whatnot, we'll talk about my origin story and how books and comics came into my life. So my family moved to Korea when I was, like 3 going on 4. Like my sister had just been born in North Carolina, and then after that we moved to Korea, and we were there for a couple of years, and I went to school out there. I was reading, speaking, writing Korean. I am not bilingual anymore. That's a whole other story. But like the school that my mom had me in, it was like this, I don't want to say it was a daycare. It was a daycare that also doubled as like an art school, basically. And I still like go on eBay and stuff and do searches trying to find like the sketchbooks. Like I'll do like like 80s vintage Korean sketchbooks, and I get real close. There was one I found that was really close, but it wasn't quite the one that I was looking for. They're just like the artwork. The reason I want these sketchbooks is just the art on the covers of these sketchbooks are just so cool looking. I want those covers. But yeah, so my dad was military. I guess that's obvious. But when we moved back to the States, to Fort Stewart, I mean, art classes, that just was not something that ever came back into my life. And anybody that knows Hinesville, Georgia, it's not the most nurturing. It's not what I'd call a cultural hotspot. Anyway, I actually looked it up the other day just to see what does the internet have to say about Hinesville, and it turns out like they were recently in Forbes. They were listed. They were in this list of cities in Georgia, and it was listed as the most boring city in Georgia, and that just made me laugh. But yeah, so move out there, and this is 1988, and my parents, they opened the store, and it originally was like, think of Pee-wee's Big Adventure and that magic shop he goes into at the beginning. It was called, like, the store was the Big Top Trick Shop, or was it the Big Top Trick Shop? It was the Big Top Trick Shop, and it was a magic shop, and we sold, like, magic tricks. When I was a little girl, like, I wanted to grow up to be like a magician's assistant. Like, I love Zatanna, and I was like, that's gonna be me. I'm gonna be like, I actually dressed up as a magician's assistant one year for Halloween. Anyway, it was like the 5th grade. It was me and it was just like me and a couple other girls. We were just kids. Anyway, so open the store. It's 88. It's a magic shop. Tiny little town, tiny little nothing military town, and the kids just like there's so much trouble, like just so much hell raising going on with kids and the stuff that they buy at our store. We got threatened to like be shut down. Like we had to stop selling a lot of the stuff that we were selling, and like stink bombs and stuff like that, and the store slowly started changing. Like, we started shedding like the magic aspect and picking up. At that time, it was like a lot of sports stuff. Like, we had a lot of baseball cards, but like all the cards, all the sports cards, and like pennant flag clocks and trash can, like, just merch, just all this sports merch, t-shirts, and along with that started coming like other stuff. Like, one whole wall of the store was plastic model kits, airbrush kits, paints, brushes, glues, and skateboards. We sold skateboards, and then it just kept growing and growing, and then we started carrying role-playing books and the comic books, and and along with all the sports cards came Magic the Gathering, and that just tied in with all like the role-playing stuff, and we had showcases just filled with dice. Oh my God, so much dice, which I love, because like I was definitely one of those kids, I was always collecting rocks and just, all my little things, and so all these sparkly, shiny, glittery dice. I mean, I just loved getting the dice shipments and all the dice bags, and then we started carrying these dice. God, they were so expensive. People bought them, and they were cool looking. They were dice actually cut from like stone and metal and like quartz, and it just so much stuff. And I remember for a little while like getting into like rockets and like building rockets and shooting rockets, and I just there's definitely a rocket phase. And never got so much into, like, I wanted to skateboard so bad. All my friends skateboarded, but one, I'm very clumsy, and two, like, nobody in my family, like, we didn't have health insurance, and my parents were basically like, if you fall and break a bone, you're screwed. So yeah, I just, you know, I was talking to a girlfriend of mine the other night, and we were lamenting how we both always wanted to skateboard, but couldn't for, you know, XYZ reasons, and how, like, we would have been really good skate chicks. Or I was like, you would have been such a good skate chick. She's like, I know, you too. We would have been such great skateboard girls, but it wasn't meant to be. Oh God, I hate when, like, giant freight trucks change lanes and they come right up on you. But yeah, I didn't get into skateboards, didn't get into role playing either. Like, I loved the books, I loved reading the books, I loved the art. I would, like, draw art, like, I'd, you know, copy art from the different books, and but I did get into comics, which my sister didn't. She didn't really get into much of any of this stuff at the store. Honestly, she was really into swim team. Like, we joined swim team in junior high, and by the time high school hit, I quit, and she continued swimming, also did diving, which you couldn't pay me to do. I'm so afraid of heights. You want me to climb up that thing and then jump off? Absolutely not. She was a lifeguard, she was a coach, like, she was in that pool. Yeah, never really, yeah, she didn't get into, like, for her, it was a job. Like, we didn't, like, you know, a lot of kids, they have, like, chores and stuff they did, or, you know, they get an allowance, and our allowance and chores was working at the store. And that's all it really was for my sister. Whereas for me, there were aspects of it that I did enjoy, which were the comics. It was so long. It wasn't until, like, in my 20s, late 20s, maybe even my early 30s. It was in my 30s. It was a really, really long time. Like, I didn't know that, like, New Comic Book Day was a thing until I started messing with the internet and started becoming, like, learning what hashtags were and stuff like that. Like, I remember asking, like, what is a hashtag? But yeah, New Comic Book Day, like, you know, I just, like, it was just, Wednesdays was shipment day. It wasn't even just comic, you know, that was when we would get everything. And it was just so interesting to me to find out later that that was, you know, New Comic Book Day for, you know, so many people around the world. And yeah, just so much of, anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah, my sister didn't really get into anything going on with the store. It was just a job, and I got into the comics, and I liked the role-playing stuff, but I didn't actually play. I just liked reading the books. I had friends who, they did a lot of live-action role-playing, and I would go and hang out. There were a couple of times I would make some character sheets, and I'd play, but it wasn't something that one thing, I was working a lot in these games, as I'm sure you all know, they would last, you know, forever. They could go on and on and on, and, you know, I just wouldn't be able to, you know, stay and hang out. So I'd just hang out and watch and read and whatever. And as far as books, reading, like, started off for me as just this very perfunctory thing. I didn't have, it wasn't something I hated, and it wasn't something I loved. It was just something that I did when I needed to. And then it was the second grade. Two things happened. I read Black Beauty, and that was, like, my first, like, book with chapters. You know, it was my first book that wasn't like a picture book or a comic, and it just was so captivating to me. And then the other thing that happened was my school started the accelerated reader program, And I was never a good student. And so suddenly having this thing where I was good at it and enjoyed it, and it was something that I could, do, and it's do competitively and be good at, and because I was not a sports person. Like my index finger on my right hand, it's like bigger than my left because of how many times I jammed my finger playing, trying to catch a kickball or trying to catch salt, just like I'm just not a sporty person. That was my sister. Is my sister. She's still, she goes to the gym. I go for walks in the backyard with the cats. And you stay there. So it was nice to have this thing that I could be, have this competitive aspect in my life that I was good at. And that's how my love of reading books came about. And because both reading books and reading comics happened so early on in my life, and at the same time, I just never, they were one and the same to me. I never saw one as being better than the other or smarter than the other. It just, when I found out later that people viewed it that way, it was so weird to me. But yeah, working at the store, oh, I love driving. Driving's great, but I fucking hate it too because I hate seeing the hit animals on the side of the road and just destroy. A little piece of me dies inside every single time. When I am the passenger, I take my glasses off. I don't see none. And it's great. But yeah, working at the store, I don't know, it had its pros and cons. I ain't gonna get into it, but imagine being half Asian and you have a Korean mom and she has an accent, and it's late 80s into the 90s, and you're in the deep South, and you're in a military town. Sometimes working at the store, it sucked, really bad. And it's just funny sometimes, when you're meeting somebody new or being introduced to somebody, you're just out and about and you just meet people and gets talking about yourself, and inevitably you'll meet somebody that's like, oh my god, you got to grow up in a comic book store, that must have been so cool, and that's my dream, that would have been my dream, and that would have been so awesome. And it's so weird because here they are envying me, and meanwhile I envy them because I think to myself, God, if it were you that had my life as this white man, it would have been such a dream for you. But, and maybe it would have been for me too if it had been in a different part of the country. It was just such a triple whammy of time and place. Just, it was rough. I'm don't want to get into it, don't want to think about it, don't want to dig into that, but it was rough. It wasn't I was not living a dream life. I'll just put it to you that way. But the silver lining was that I did get to grow up in a comic shop, and I had all these comics I could read, and just really good at ignoring a lot of these fine people and just staying lost in my little world. So, you know, it was a mixed bag of good and bad. And I do miss having a store. Like, I remember, God, when we closed, so we opened in 88 and we closed in 2007. And man, that was like it for me for a long time as far as buying comics. Unless it was Chris Ware or the Hernandez brothers, I wasn't really buying anything, because to go from having free comics your whole life to suddenly having to pay for them, that sucked. And it was so weird going into comic stores too. Like, it's just, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like suddenly, like, my house isn't my house anymore. It's like going back to a house you used to live in, but other people are living there. And it just, it's not that you don't feel, it's not that you feel unwelcome, but you also don't feel welcome. It's just, it was just weird. It was, so I didn't go into comic shops for a long time. I didn't buy comics for a long time, unless it was a Hernandez or a Ware drop. That was the only thing I kept up with, because everything else, you know, just, oh my God, it was just, you just can't keep up with everything. So that's what I stuck with. And when did I start buying comics again? It was almost 10 years later. And even then it was like very sporadic. Like, I think my return to comics was I was living in LA, and I was like, going from Hinesville to Los Angeles, oh my God, it was, Jesus, I could talk about that forever. But one of the things I did was I wanted to see what the comic shops were like. So I went to Meltdown, and went to Skylight, and went to Golden Apple. I bought, my Breaking the Seal was buying the Young Liars series by David Lapham. He did About 100 Bullets. That's Azariah Riso. Stray Bullets. But yeah, that was my return. It was a glorious return. God, such a good series. Get Young Liars by David Lapham. It's a fabulous. It's cuckoo bananas. It's something else. But yeah, it was good. It felt good. It was weird, but it felt good. And I've been back ever since, and it feels good. Like, I've gotten to a place where instead of feeling like we're going into shops, it feels good to know, like, I'm supporting, like, my world. These are my guys. These are my people. So it's nice. We've come around to things. We've learned. We've laughed. We've cried. We've grown. And I daydream about having a shop again. It would be really cool to have a skateboard comic shop again. I don't think I would go, include the plastic model kit side of things. Like, we had, airbrush kits, and we had, like, train sets. We had all the train weirdos, and I love you guys. That's not a dig. But yeah, it's just, it's not something I know anything about, so I just wouldn't feel comfortable. Like, and it's not something I don't have really much interest in plastic model kits. And like, it's so funny, like, when I imagine the store, it's like, that's the left side of the store where all those things are. And then on the right side of the store is all the things that I like. That's all where all the comics are, and the graphic novels, and the role-playing books, and the dice, and the trading cards, and the Pokemon cards. And I didn't play Pokemon like that. All that stuff started hitting my world when I was just a little too old. I was a little too cool for that, even though I had friends that were into it. But I was like, what are you doing playing with these things? Still playing with your Pogs too. But yeah, I was too cool for Pokemon, man. But boy, we sold the shit out of those cards, man. We had like one whole showcase that was just like singles of Pokemon hologram cards. And these kids would come in and buy them, and I would just be mystified. Like, I love my trading cards, but I don't know, I guess there's just different levels of fandom. I just could not conceive of spending money buying a single. But I don't know. Now I'm imagining like this whole story of like, like these Pokemon battles and how there's this person that they just have like this grudge against or whatever, and they gotta own this person and get them with this Charizard card. I remember my sister and I, we would take our like superhero trading cards, because they have like the stats and stuff, and we would make up our own games with them, with dice and whatnot. It was fun. And then Hero Clicks came along, and I was like, this is just too busy. Like, just all you need is just get a die. Just roll the die. And then have your little rule system and your little point system, and the stats are already on the card. I mean, that's just me. But I don't know, I guess I get the appeal of Hero Clicks if you're into like Warhammer and whatnot, which I sold that too. God, that stuff's expensive. Did not get into it myself. It's not a miniature painter. But my friends were. Yeah, I was just there for the comics. That was my thing. Even with the role playing, like, you would think that I would really have been into role playing, but no. Wasn't big into video games either. Like, I loved my Nintendo. I loved playing video games. But once I hit like 12, 13, we got a Sega, and I played the hell out of BattleTech and this weird environmental hummingbird game called Colibri, which I just played mostly because it was pretty and I liked the music. I really couldn't tell you what the hell that game was about, and if my sister was here, she'd tell you the same thing. Like, we would play and we'd be like, what are we doing? Like, what is this game? Like, what is going on? I don't know what that game was about, but it was pretty and the music was cool, and you could just fly around as a hummingbird, so it was fun. But yeah, beyond that, video games turned into like a boyfriend thing. Like, that was something the boyfriend did. And like, I would play Halo when that came around. God, we had this game room where it was like 2 TVs, 2 Xboxes, and they would be playing on both of them in the split level screen. There'd be like 8 people packed in this room playing Halo. And I was actually good at that. I was a really good sniper. I liked playing as a sniper on Halo. I was good, and I liked having the dual pistols. And that was it. So that classic Nintendo, a little bit of Sega, a dash of Halo. And that was that. It was just comics and books. Comics and books, books and comics. And then one day I don't know. these books that, would be assigned to the class, but then we would write, or not write, like every chapter we would illustrate something from that chapter and then and write about it. And I was thinking that it'd be cool to have something like that where, I'd read from a book and I'd talk about, give a breakdown of like what happened. And I also was imagining like I'd have this dry erase board and I'd go over like the different parts of speech and spelling and punctuation and grammar, and it was just like this whole thing in my head. And then so that turned into, there's just always an excuse of how you're not ready to do it yet, and it's very nerve-wracking. And I finally decided, well, I'm just gonna start small, and we'll get to the grammar stuff later once I get comfortable doing it. And then, this is really embarrassing, but I realized that I'm actually not as good at grammar and punctuation as I thought. I'm just comfortable with it in the way, like when my sister and I ask my mom about like something that she makes, and we ask her to give us the recipe, and she can't because she doesn't know the recipe, because she doesn't know the measurements, the actual numbers, the actual like units, because she just does it by feel. Like she literally knows how she's making the stuff by feeling how much salt or whatever spice it is, in her hand, or the weight of, she can't give like the actual technical breakdown. And that's how it is with me and grammar and punctuation. Like I know, like I'm as familiar with it, I'm comfortable with it because of how much I read and write, but to actually technically teach it, like the rules of, I don't know. So that ended up just like, yeah, that clearly that does not happen. But yeah, and the fact that, I love, like I would see that there are a lot of channels that talk about books or channels that talk about comics, but I didn't see anything that did both. And yeah, here we are. So I've been talking for a while, and I think this is long enough because I'm going to need this battery later for GPSing. But I got to a point where it was like, and your next turn is in 84 miles. And I was like, oh, okay, so we'll do a little recording during that part. But I think I'm going to need that GPS soon. So I'm going to end this here. And yeah,